Well guys, here we are again, thanks to my subscribers and anyone else who puts anything towards these, even just for having a look at it. We won't bugger eyes around. A BSA 420cc stationary engine, we'll call it a restoration. Once again, it's just a clean up, so let's hook in and get this thing started.
Well guys, here's the next project. It's a BSA Model A industrial engine, 420cc I think it is. Ordered some parts for it the other day, gasket set and that sort of thing, so we're going to clean him up and make him look pretty, well, pretty good hopefully. It is a runner. I've had this running. The carby's not bad, but the float is very worn, and that's a little bit loose actually. Yeah, so I've got to try and get a float. But yeah, it's got compression and all that sort of thing. It's complete from what I can see. It runs its own oil pump, which is interesting. What else have we got here? Yeah, just a few. That's the dipstick and the filler, obviously. But yeah, she needs a good tidy up and all of that, which we'll do. Hopefully the tank's all right on this one and there's no rust in the bottom of it with a bit of luck. Yeah, so that's about that, but yeah, it is a runner. We'll see what she looks like inside. We'll start the tear down and we'll clean it all up, and I'm thinking we'll probably paint it the same colours as this BSA that we've just done. Yeah, we'll just see with that, but yeah, it's got to be cleaned up to begin with, but yeah, it should be all right. We'll make it a nice little engine, and hopefully it doesn't need too much inside in the way of components. But yeah, let's hook in and get stuck into this. Tell you what, guys, the things you discover when you start pulling an old engine to bits. If you have a look on the left, the valve on the left is the exhaust valve. Notice the clearance. Look at the one on the right, and then you can see there's a little cup or cap off the top of the valve that's sitting in there. Somehow that's gotten off the end of the valve, so the clearance is just massive there. I don't know, I mean, I'm lucky the piece is there. But yeah, it makes you wonder how it got off in the first place. Also looks like, if you look at, a bit hard to get the light just right, around the bottom of that stud, looks like it's a bit cracked there. We'll have a closer look at that, but yeah, the things you find when you pull an engine to bits. Yeah, starting to get into it now, tubers. Got the cowling off. She's a pretty grotty old engine. Yeah, it needs a damn good clean up. Valves and that are moving. As we know, it is a runner, but yeah, she's going to need a lot of tidy up. Every man's occasionally blessed with luck, tubers. The flywheel, I thought I was going to have a hell of a time getting it off. A couple of screwdrivers just behind the back there, pop straight off. So, yeah, miracle of all miracles. Tell you what, tubers, that's a pretty interesting drain plug for the sump. It's got a gauze filter on it there somehow. Never seen that before. Probably comes apart a bit more, but yeah, certainly different. Just lifted the cylinder head off, tubers, and doesn't look too bad. Take note there, you can just make it out. There's a little arrow and a word that says front, and it's pointing towards, well, the front of the motor. Yeah, good on you. Appears to be all right. We'll know a little bit more once we get into it. The bore doesn't appear to be scored or anything, but yeah, upon further disassembly, we'll find out for sure. So yeah, looking good so far. More surprises, tubers. Just lifted the cylinder off and have a look at that. The top 3 rings are there, but the 4th one down the bottom, which is an oil control ring, is not there. And I wonder if it was ever fitted. I've seen that there is a variance on these. Some models have 3 rings and some have 4. Now, I don't know if one's earlier and one's later or vice versa, but I don't think it was ever fitted. I mean, why would that ring wear out completely with no sign of it, and yet the others be intact? So I don't think it was ever fitted. Maybe this particular piston suits both models, but yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, took the bore off. Looks really good, as I say. We'll clean it up, but yeah, looks really good. They're the little push rods for the valves. Yeah, so we'll keep going. Well, there we have it, guys. The BSA 420cc is torn down. On first inspection, crankshaft looks virtually unmarked. It's in beautiful condition. The big end only very slight, not even scoring. So that's a bonus. The cylinder, as I mentioned, looks really good. Obviously, I'll give it a hone and a clean up. The valves have got to be done. I don't know what they're like yet. I haven't pulled it apart yet. The block and all that looks all right. Once again, filthy bloody dirty, needs a damn good clean up. Behind that gear is the oil pump. So we'll pop that gear off and have a look at the oil pump. I'm tipping it's okay. Piston and all that looks all right. Cam looks pretty good. Yeah, as I say, as I go through the components, I'll know more about them. But yeah, it looks all right. Bell of a clean-up job coming up though, tubers, I tell you. More good news, tubers. The gasket set that VACES supplied me appears to be the right one, so that's good. And Steve there also sent me some BSA service sheets for the power units 320 and 420cc, which is what we're dealing with. So there should be some hopefully good tips in there on reassembly and that sort of thing. You know, and governor and carburetor adjustments and so on and so on. Seems to be a lot of information. I'll sit down later and have a beer and read a bit of it. But so that's good. I've got a couple of the crankshaft seals. I think I've got one to get. So yeah, we've got most of the parts. And as I say, I don't know about that bottom oil control ring on the four groove piston. I think I can get away with it, but I'll do a bit more research. Well, just pulled the valves out of this thing, tubers. That's the exhaust. That's the intake. The seats aren't too bad. A little bit pitted, but a good lap will bring them up. Looking at the valve, I don't know if that's in focus or not. Once again, a good clean up and a good lap I think will do it. Have to do a bit of measuring. I'm not quite sure how we get our clearance. But yeah, we'll look into that. So yeah, they'll clean up. That's the intake. Where are we? There we are. Focus, yep. That's pretty bloody good for a, you know, for an engine that's I think is 1948. I don't think it's done a lot of work once again. I think I'm pretty lucky. Now I also noticed on the top of the cowling, don't know if you can make that out in the middle there, AJH 1948. I don't know what AJH stands for, but the 1948's interesting. So yeah, we've got ourselves a pretty old motor here, guys, but it's, I mean, looking at the bearings and that, so there's one of the mains. Hang on, let me get a bit of light on the subject. There's one of the mains. They're not too bad, you know what I mean? Like they're not too heavily scored or anything. So yeah, once again, I don't think it's done a lot of work, you know. I mean, who knows with these engines? Sometimes they might have stopped for whatever reason, and someone couldn't get them going again, and they probably just thought, oh, well, it's stuffed. And it might have been something simple like a dirty fuel filter or anything. So anyway, yeah, we'll keep going. Occupational health and safety time, tubers. Now, I don't know for certain, but this intake exhaust gasket, I'd almost bet my whatever that is asbestos. So just be careful with these things. Asbestos is all right as long as you don't disturb it. Once you start making fibres, that's when you have problems. So Yeah, being very careful here because you just never ever know. See, that's that one. And if you look at on this intake manifold part of it too, I'll bet you that's asbestos or got asbestos content. So just be careful with those things, guys. Wear PPE, whatever, you know, do the right thing. Just having a quick play around with this Magneto tube. There's nothing serious, just having a quick look. Because as I said, I've never dealt with one of these, so it's going to be interesting. Oil every 200 hours with Wakefield. Gastro light filled to overflowing. I presume that's that little brass thing there. So we'll see what happens with that. Points, as I say, it was a runner. They work. They look pretty scummy though, and when I took the cover off, that looks suspiciously like a water level to me. So I'm tipping that, yeah, at some point she's had a bit of water there. But as I say, to its credit, it ran. So it better bloody well run once I finish with it. Just looking at the oil pump here, guys. If you look at my thumb, it gives you an idea of the size. It's the tiniest little oil pump I've ever seen. But once again, all appears to be quite serviceable. A bit more work on the bloody sore ass, guys. The BSA, yeah, you know. Sandblasted the cylinder, cleaned it all up, degreased it, all that sort of thing. So now we'll do whatever grinding, sanding, honing, whatever we need to do, and then we'll give it a final clean and a powder coat. Cylinder come up very nicely. Don't know how clear that is, but it came up beautiful with a hone. Just a light hone, not a heavy hone. Seats don't look too bad. That's the... Just trying to get the light right here, guys. That's the exhaust, the top one. That's not bad. That'll slap in nicely. Likewise for the intake. And the valve, I've just started on the exhaust. You can see that there. That'll lap in nicely once again. Normally when I pull these apart, see I put a little centre punch dot. That just tells me that it's the exhaust. But as I was cleaning this valve, and I don't even know if we'll be able to get it, but on the very tip of the exhaust, I don't know if you can make that out, it says EX. I just saw it as I was cleaning it up. I thought, oh yeah, exhaust. So they obviously label the valves as well. I hadn't seen that before, but I don't even know if you can make that out. I hope you can. So that's interesting, but yeah, always mark where the parts come from. If they were intake, exhaust, main bearing caps, big end caps, the direction of the caps, cam bearings. If you're not replacing them, put them all back in the same spot. Just cleaning up the pan here, tubers, or the oil pan, or sump, or whatever you want to call it. It depends on what country you learnt in. In Australia, they're a sump. It's aluminium, as is the main crankcase of this BSA. So for that reason, I'm not going to paint it. I'll paint the cylinder because that's cast iron, but the actual crankcase and the pan or sump or whatever are aluminium. So I've just been playing around with the wire wheel a little bit. It's been through the degreaser, obviously, and some bits are starting to shine up, but sort of looking at it, it's got a lot of rough castings, such as there, for example, and the bottom, you know, you can see where it's been on the ground, but what I'm going to do is I'll do a little bit of highlighting on it. Just with the Dremel and that, I'll countersink a few of these holes to clean them up, and we're not going to polish it, but we'll try and dress it up as best we can. See what I mean about some of the casting marks? Now, I know they're original, but I'm tipping at the factory, if the tradesmen had time, they probably would have loved to have cleaned all them up. Obviously, time wouldn't have allowed and cost wouldn't have allowed, but we're not going to go crazy. We're just going to give it just a bit of a detail. Just see how it comes up. See what happens with it.
That's it for this one, guys. We shall talk to you in part 2 of this, which will be coming up in, you know, however long it takes me to clean up all the bits and pieces. Thank you to my subscribers. Thank you to my viewers. Anyone who watches these, it's all, you know, I don't sit here begging for subscribers and all that like everyone else does. If you want to watch it, watch it. If you don't, you don't. Neither here nor there. It's just a bit of fun. Yeah, but anyway, look out for part 2 because it's coming up very soon, guys. Keep away from the China virus.